Hello, colleagues, and welcome to another DINCast, where this one is flying off to New York, where I'm absolutely delighted to meet one of the leaders in terms of digital and presentation and storytelling. I'm joined here by Caya, who's one of the co-founders and CEO of SlideBean. And Caya, welcome along today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me, Ian, and thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, as I say, I'm really pleased to sort of get the chance to sort of chat to you today, because I've shared quite a few of your SlideBean sort of exposés into the world of sort of corporate innovation and corporate failure and things like that. So I think some members may already be aware of you, but for those who aren't, do you want to sort of tell us a little bit about yourself and your personal sort of journey and how you've got to where you are today?
Well, sure. So I started my first company maybe 8 years ago, and that failed. But I sort of found myself with this curious set of skills, which I have a background in filmmaking and storytelling. And after going through this process of pitching investors and seeing how my fellow companies and entrepreneurs and CEOs in the office that we shared, how they were pitching investors and struggling with their pitch decks, we figured, well, maybe PowerPoint's not such a great solution for this. And honestly, these CEOs, they need to be focused on what they do best, which is grow their companies. And the pitch deck is a part of that process that maybe they're willing to outsource, or maybe we can build a tool that can help them do it better. So that's the origin story.
And I just wondered, sort of, in this day and age, Caya, where you've got so many tools for presenting and telling a story to people, why we are so bad at sort of pitching and presenting then, or not as good as we could be?
The thing is, that's a good question. The thing is with presenting with the format of a pitch deck, right? Investors expect to see like this 15-slide summary of a company, right? And putting a company story into 15 slides is much easier said than done, especially because you're diving deep into this company, you're living and breathing this. So you want to speak for an hour about this company, but you have 4 minutes, which is the time that they'll likely spend reading your deck, right? So how do you condense all of that? That's, I think, a part that a lot of people struggle with. PowerPoint, which is still the standard tool to do that, doesn't make it easier, because on PowerPoint you're sort of presented with this blank canvas, and you have to distill content into this white piece of virtual paper, and at the same time figure out how that's going to be laid out. Do the design, right? So you're sometimes distracted, kind of like figuring out what font to do, or what font to use, or what color to use for the title, or where to align it, when at the very beginning you should just be focusing on what content should go on that slide.
And you mentioned before, again, sort of about storytelling, and I happen to believe that's a really powerful sort of tool. So is that a skill that people can learn?
I think it is. I very much think it is. Sometimes, I just don't know if it's worth learning for everyone. Great storytelling makes up for great presentations, whether that's I don't know, for whatever reason, even if it's a team meeting, if you have some good storytelling, you can get people excited around it. So yes, is it useful? Yes, but honestly, we just can't be good at everything, right? So for the most part, or at least a lot of CEOs that we work with, they're business-oriented people, or financial-oriented people, or product-oriented people that just want to go back to what they do best, and again, not spend too much time on this. But the problem, or the challenge, or the balance here is that this presentation makes or breaks their company, right? If they if they get it right, they get funding. If they don't, they might go belly up. So we sort of work in this very delicate balance of important but not that important.
Right. And again, I mean, that'll be relevant for anybody who's trying to get a decision, not just in terms of investment. Anybody who's looking to sort of persuade and motivate people, telling that story will also be hugely important. But turning to sort of, problem solving, and again, you help a lot of startup communities sort of solve some of their problems before they look for sort of investment. Do you think sort of leaders have the right approach to problem solving? For example, how do you go about solving a problem within Slidebean in terms of something that comes towards you? Do you have an approach that you are confident with?
Like literally I think the job of the CEO is problem solving, and it's very exciting. I think it's what makes me still want to own this job, because every day you have new problems that you have to solve, new challenges, and you sort of have to kind of distill that. And in my approach, that's the way I do it. I see people kind of like overwhelmed with whatever those problems are, debt, or a lot of work, or family issues, or business problems in the company. And then I think that sometimes you're just overwhelmed by trying to solve all these things at once. But once you distill each one of those problems into pieces, they become much easier to solve. And at the same time, if you do that, if you run that exercise of distilling, like breaking those big problems apart, trying to find individual solutions, you will soon find solutions that could apply to another problem. So you're getting rid of, you're getting out of your brain, getting all the other problems out of your brain, focusing on this one, trying to find a solution for it. And once you do, oftentimes that's a solution that could work and solve, two or three of the other challenges that we're trying to overcome. It's happened to me. It happened to me a couple of times in the last few weeks and months, where either restructuring teams, or moving people, or hiring this new persona, or these new position have been kind of a solution to multiple problems, and all of this stuff sort of begins to fit into place.
So, I mean, we've talked sort of previously about, we live in a digital world now, and I think what COVID has done is shone a light on businesses, and particularly around sort of ethics and values and purpose. How important do you think those characteristics are for future business success?
That's a good question. Like, I think that a lot of companies have sort of embedded that ethical concept into their brand, and into what they do. Like one of my favorite examples is a company called Buffer, who does like this social media toolkit, and they're the ones that sort of began this transparency move. It's not a movement; they just became like this transparent company, and they tried to start a movement. But honestly, I don't think it's caught on, because it's a very challenging. It's a very challenging approach, which is everything about them is public. Their revenue is public. Most of their metrics used to be public, from churn to new customers, not the names of the customers or their contact information, but everything. Like new customer comes in, like there was a dashboard online that you could check and see what was happening with Buffer. And for us, this was incredibly useful in the early stages, because we would look at a company that was similar, but they were much bigger than us when we were looking at the data, but we were looking at the data from 2-3 years back when we were similar companies, and understanding, okay, so they got that big. What happened? What was happening when we were at this stage? And this was pretty remarkable tool for us. We've sort of copied a little bit of that with what we've done with content, where we try to release some stuff. We've released some of our financials, for example. We released our 2016 financials up to 2016, like the actual spreadsheet with all our numbers and my salary and everything. And yes, like the reply that we get is like, this is an incredibly useful thing that I could not have found anywhere else. So that's great. It's a great marketing tactic for us. Buffer goes all the way through to making their live today data public, which I don't think we're prepared to do. But yeah, it's a very favorite example of mine.
So culture is a big part of sort of any successful company, no matter what size you've got, and particularly a culture of innovation. How do you lead to make sure that Slidebean has that right innovation culture?
Also a great question. Like it's very easy to kind of find ourselves, like we're a profitable company, which comes with its set of challenges. As well as I sleep at night, being a profitable company, which was not the case when we were not a profitable company and still depended on additional rounds of funding. like this necessity to force this necessity to innovate, to reinvent yourself all the time slows down a little bit, right? Because now you're dealing with a much bigger team. Bigger teams inevitably move slower, and that's a lesson that I've learned time and time again. When you double your team, you don't double your productivity. You maybe do 1.5x productivity if you're lucky. That's just something that I had a really hard time wrapping my head around. So, like one of the things we're doing is, that's why we keep an office in 2 locations. So most of our team is back in Costa Rica, but we have an office in New York, and we don't want to relocate Costa Rican people because that's just expensive. So what we do is we rotate them. So we have teams of 2 that come in 3-week periods just to live in New York, just to kind of live and breathe how the startup ecosystem works over here, which is maybe not the startup ecosystem that we have in Silicon Valley, but it's still like a fast-paced city that, in my mind, like puts you on this faster track, or on this faster way of working. Yeah, just a couple ideas.
So just sort of rewinding back a little bit. I mean, obviously, you're from Costa Rica. So how hard was it for you to sort of come into Silicon Valley and actually make it? Because you mentioned about your first company, and it was just very matter of fact, or it failed. For a lot of people that could have been a life-changing event. So tell us a little bit more about you sort of personally, in terms of how you've managed to sort of because you must have come across a lot of different barriers and challenges.
Yeah, like the problem with Costa Rica, I love Costa Rica, and I live there by choice. But the problem with Costa Rica is that it's such a tiny country, such a tiny market, that you just can't you can't build a unicorn in this country at all. So you have to get out, and when you have to get out, or you have to sell outside, right? And then being based in Costa Rica and trying to sell outside is a disadvantage, because you're tied culturally, inevitably, by how things work there, and you can sort of translate your brain and try to think like the way things work elsewhere, but you're always like one step behind, right, compared to a company that's actually based in a startup hub. So that was very clear to us since the very beginning of Slightbean. Again, as much as we liked all 3 founders, we have deep roots in Costa Rica, homes, mortgages, and things. we always realized that this had to be at least partially an international company, because otherwise we were just going to fall behind. It's not only a question of investors. Yes, the venture capital market is very, very small in Costa Rica, but it's not only about the investors. It's about the customers. We have to sort of understand where they live, where they are, and be part of that ecosystem if we really want to thrive. And I think that we've done remarkably, not being based in the US. Like, since the pandemic started, nobody's been here in this New York office. Like, it's been empty for a year. And I think that despite of that, we've done pretty well, like making sure this megaphone reaches everywhere. But I think it's because of that. It's because we've always been clear about the fact that Costa Rica is just the place where we happen to live, but we need to kind of erase all these barriers. And it's very easy to get distracted by this. A lot of people ask me, like, hey, why don't you, like, if you guys advertised here, you'd be rock stars. Like, everybody would know about you. And we're like, yes, but we just can't afford to waste time, because it's such a small market. We just need to really, really focus on where the majority of our customers are, where we can make the biggest impact.
And so just that sort of, I'm just trying to understand that failure in sort of 2011 then. I mean, how did you sort of get the resilience to, get over that and then bounce back and then, get to where you are with Slidebean now? Because a lot of people would have just given up.
Yeah, I think that the younger you are, the easier it is to fail. When that company went bust, I was like $16,000 in debt from the credit card debt from expenses of this said company. Because I was so sure we were going to raise money. I figured, just put my card and then I'll pay myself back when we raise money. And then we didn't, which was a very shitty position to be in, and a very shitty position to start a company in. But I think that the position that you have to be in to start a company is, I found this market opportunity, and there's few people that could tackle it like me. Like, that's the position that you want to be in for a company. Like at that point, I had two choices. I could either go get a day job, and that meant that it would take me 2 or 3 years to pay back this credit card debt that I had, which sucked. Like it was not an exciting scenario by any means, but at least I have a day job. Or I could do it again, like living the extreme risk of having the debt and starting a new business and seeing how that went. And that seemed like a better. Honestly, one of my biggest concerns back then was just paying back my card. And that seemed like a better, potentially faster way to pay it. But in the ideal scenario, like what you do is you find yourself with this idea, this market opportunity that it's not only a good idea, but you or your team have a unique set of skills that give you an advantage over anybody else trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I can see that from the what you guys pull together, the quality of the production, and what you actually do. So I can see why that would sort of be prime, really important for you. So final question from me then. So from all of the sectors and the startups and the companies that you sort of working with, which area or which sort of sector is exciting you the most, that you think, wow, this is genuinely something that's going to come down in 18 months, 2 years time, and this is going to be big?
That's a good question. I'm very, very excited. I mean, I'm carefully excited about blockchain technology. I think Bitcoin as a currency is just speculation right now, and it's like a gamble. But I think that the underlying technology of the blockchain is really, really interesting. And we're seeing a lot of companies kind of do things around that. So I'm a cautious believer in the blockchain technology. I think that there are some insane things being done with AI right now, and the challenge with these companies is that they're just trying to find applications for these things, right? Like I was speaking to this company yesterday called Facet. It's facet.it, I think, the website. Like they figured out a way to just automatically select any layer in an image. So when instead of doing Photoshop, you just have a picture of somebody, and then they can select the hair, the head, the clothes, the background separately, and you can just move those layers, which before you had to like paint. And we had this hour discussion on how do you use this technology, because you could use it for anything, right? You could use it to transform an e-commerce website so that you can see different colors of clothing without having to take different photos. Or you could use it to like test interior design without having to do anything. Or we could use it for editing, so we don't have to use a green screen because that thing auto selects everything. Like it has so many uses, but the challenge that these and like inventions like this, like GPT-3, for example, like the natural language writing, they have fantastic potential, but it's about finding that final step, like that final real life use that could make it accessible or useful for everybody. The blockchain, even today, and even Bitcoin is like it's meant for geeks. You have to getting a Bitcoin wallet is really a mess. Average person doesn't want to go through that. But the underlying technology is great. So I think that the companies that can find those bridges between existing technologies and just the average human being, like those are the companies that thrive. Like whatever combination of AI TikTok uses, like this company solved that connection, and that's why TikTok is so freaking awesome.
No, that's brilliant. It's fairly familiar, solutions looking for a problem. But we've reached the end of our time now, Caya. But thank you so much for sort of sharing the inside story of SlideBean, your personal journey, and some of the insights that you've come across in what you're doing. So we'll continue to follow SlideBean. So keep churning those YouTube videos out, and all the very best for the future, sir.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me, Ian.